catch it early. Help us teach kids about cancer symptoms through Ultimate Frisbee clinics. Join us and speak up.
It is a drizzly Wednesday morning here in the United Kingdom, and we are set for what should be a fascinating day of ultimate competition here at the World Ultimate and Guts Championships. The first game of the day features Team Canada and Team Japan, two teams that certainly feel they are worthy of being championship contenders. And obviously this is a rematch of one of the most contentious games in the history of Ultimate 4 years ago in Sakai. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to London. I'm Evan Lepler alongside Brian Jones. And Brian, this is a matchup a lot of people are looking forward to. You were in Sakai 4 years ago. What does that game mean related to today?
I think it means a lot in terms of history, but we're looking at two teams here that just did a handshake line before the start of the game. It's a new group for the Canadians, especially, who were called out after Sakai in 2012. Here, talked before the game as we take a look at their roster. Only 6 players coming back, and among them Jeff Lindquist, one of the main players, Morgan Hibbert. It was a very different team for Team Canada, mostly based out of Furious George from Vancouver. This time around, it's a heavy Toronto squad with representation all from Canada and there, but they're ready to go. They look strong. Having coached against them before, I know what they can do. Very talented.
And Team Japan, like Canada, has gone perfect so far this week in London. This is basically the championship game for Power Pool L. Both Canada and Japan have already vanquished Ireland and France. And you've seen Japan through the years. They play a unique brand of Ultimate. It certainly adds interesting flavor into the Ultimate community. For those who have never seen the Japanese before, what should we expect?
For the Japanese, normally they go up against opponents where they're undersized, so they have developed a strategy that's revolved around passes quickly leaving hands and getting the receivers as fast as possible. You'll see them utilize blades in different ways and often throw to the break side deep. Passes that a lot of North American teams aren't used to seeing, aren't used to implementing. And when we talk about Japan, we have to talk about Masahiro Matsuno. If there's anybody who's in Ultimate lore, it has to be him. He's had some dominating games in the past. He's getting up there in the years, but still very experienced, and somebody that you always have to point out. On the rest of the roster, when you take a look, the other name that always comes up is Mahasi Korono, number 6. He does a fantastic job cutting and sending it deep for Japan. It's going to be a great game today, Evan.
Masahiro Matsuno, now 33 years young, but still a very worthy player at the top level of the international game. And the coaching staff for Japan, Yohei Abe and Yoshinori Nasan, they have both played in the past. Abe was on the team 4 years ago. They have a combined 45 years of Ultimate experience between them. And Team Canada, with Mark Lloyd back healthy, tore his ACL. He's not wearing his customary number 89 because that belongs to the veteran handler Kevin Underhill. But Lloyd suffered a torn ACL a little over a year ago. He has gradually worked his way back. And 4 years ago, he was on the Canadian mixed team. As we are underway, day 4 here in London. Canada and Japan, and on offense, it's Masahiro Matsuno with the disc, marked by Lloyd.
Starting off with a side stacking quickly, they reverse field and change the space, and there's going to be a call on the play.
I think Lloyd called a travel, and Matsuno smiled as if to say yes. Now, there's certainly a communications barrier, which is one of the issues that popped up 4 years ago in the game that grew very contentious between these two countries. But they had great sportsmanship before the game, and I think everyone has sort of taken lessons from that experience in Sakai. Expect a much more spirited, but still very competitive game today. Tetsuyo Kamimura to the brink of the end zone for Masahiro Korono. And a call downfield. Now, adjacent to this Canada-Japan game, Tom Stiles and Megan Molteni have the call of USA and Australia. If you have multiple screens, it's a great morning or afternoon, wherever you might be watching from, to have multiple games on. We will try to keep you updated on USA Australia as best we can. The winners of these two games will play each other 4 hours from now in a game we hope to have for you as well here in London. Opening offensive point. Corono marked by Powell all the way back to Matsuno.
Really pushing the Japanese offense back, and that's a result of good marks and the lengths that the Canadians are able to use.
You can see how involved Corono is in the offense already. Stall count rising. Dish it off to Yohei Kichikawa, who's the oldest member of this Japanese team. He's 39. Guarded by the young, athletic Remy Ojo, who just got beat up the line. And Japan has taken a 1-0 lead. I wonder if Ojo tweaked something there, because he basically just let his man Kichikawa break free up the line, and an easy score for the Japanese.
When we talk about Remy Ojo, you talk about highlight reel plays. He's used to defending a lot of deep shots that are going to float in the air and get the block. Recently, we've seen him take different types of guards, marking handlers in the AUDL. He's done a better job of late, but this isn't the type of matchup that's going to play to his strengths necessarily. I expect Remy Ojo to make big plays, but we saw right there an inability to contain the Japanese offense here in the early goings.
So a 1-0 lead for Japan. No turnovers on that first point. USA has begun its game on offense, and an errant deep shot that sailed just long at the back of the end zone has given Australia a chance for an early break on our adjacent pitch. Let's take a look at the Canadian offense with Thompson McKnight and Kevin Underhill anchoring the handling core. Downfield, Isaiah Massett-Kelly, Cameron Harris, along with Tim Sang, Jeff Lindquist, and a deep shot looking for Andre Galitz, but it's Massett-Kelly who comes in and intercepts it from his teammate, hits Galitz for the score. Canada evens things up quickly.
Over the last couple of years, Toronto has risen to become the premier team in Canada, but Furious George in Vancouver still has a lot of great players, and we just saw that there. Normally, it's Thompson McKnight getting the centering pass, but Kevin Underhill has developed into such a great handler. After we take a look there as well, Galitz is the one streaking deep. He's an intense goal scorer that usually comes up with a lot of totals and a lot of goals, a lot of assists for his Furious George squad and in the Vancouver scene.
Well, the third member of our broadcast crew today is David Price. He's down on the field and has an interesting observation early. David.
Just looking at that initial pool play from Team Canada, we saw the Japanese trying to just squash their defense so that the Canadians couldn't have that initial pool play, and it slowed them down enough. But that deep shot really taken advantage of by the Team Canada.
Yeah, thanks, David. There's certainly a lot of versatility in both these teams' game plans, but they like to do what they want early in the game in terms of running to a formula.
Deep pull is going to pin the Japanese back in their own end zone. Coming out here in a spread offense, using a quick flip.
And the deep shot looking for Corono. He beats Jackie Howe to the spot. Masashi Corono. Little strike cut. Taiyo Arakawa. Back to Corono. Quickness is probably the characteristic that best characterizes the Japanese.
Corono's the only one who seems to have a height advantage out there and low center of gravity. The Japanese know how to train for this. They do it with their throws, the systematic offense. We're talking to Coach Scott Hasty of
Japan into the end zone. Taiyo Arakawa with the score.
Arakawa, nicknamed the Jet, came up through the U23 scene back in 2013 in Toronto. and since then has been playing with the main Japanese squad, including the Buzz Bullets, in club competition. Kurono, as we see here on the replay, he's somebody that's just such a tough matchup. He's one of the few Japanese players that can really threaten deep as well, and a great break continuation, as you see in the replay. Kurono hits the soft pass up the line, and that leads to the free break side cut. Arakawa takes advantage.
Did you think either one of these teams had an edge coming into this game, or did you view this as a pretty even battle?
I think Japan has had such an era of where they've always been the sleeper team and everybody's been afraid of them. They've come up with some massive upsets over the years. But Team Canada seems loaded with talent at this time. I'm a little surprised, frankly, with the lines from Team Canada. I expected just a little bit different coming out. I think what we're seeing is Canada is getting all of their players involved early to get the energy up. As we see a zone defense here from Japan, and it's a 2-3-2 type of formation. Canada working through it easily.
They handled it well so far, up the line to Galitz. And here's Cameron Harris, a very dynamic thrower from the Toronto area. Thompson McKnight. Here's Isaiah Masek-Kelly to Lindquist, one of the veterans. There's certain guys on Canada known for their throwing creativity. Lindquist certainly leads that crew. And McKnight with an uncharacteristic drop. That's the game's first turnover.
Pass was a little far, but McKnight just didn't seem to get underneath it and try to go out with the one hand. A little slippery out here on the drizzly day. Not too much rain coming down, just enough to make the disc wet.
We've been told that this Japanese team has been shooting it deep a little bit more than they used to. Although they probably haven't faced a team with the size and the height of Canada, and yet they're going to test Jeff Lindquist. And Lindquist up to the task.
That wasn't the throw the Japanese wanted. They're not going to try to hang it up there.
Masek-Kelly just shy of the end zone. Underhill. A hold to make it 2-2. Next door, Australia has an early 2-1 lead on the United States.
Coven Underhill, we're taking a look here, number 89 shirt on the field for Team Canada. Out of Vancouver, he was a player for a long time that was coming up through the ranks, had a huge impact in the U23 scene, but lately has cemented himself as one of the best players in the country. He's somebody who's also very versatile. He's very consistent from the handler spot, but he's running up the field here as McKnight bombs it deep on the replay. And we're going to see Masek-Kelly make the catch, and then there's Underhill. And he was starting out often in the handler position, usually getting the centering pass off the pole.
Well, here's a question that Japan's going to have to answer. Do they have an answer for a guy like Masek-Kelly going deep?
Historically, they have not been able to rely on one-on-one matchups to get the job done. And so we saw the 2-3-2 zone. The Japanese will stick with that. They like to use their zone. They have a unique way of attacking with that, where they're playing different areas and making sure they have help deep, but they're always seemingly to guard a man and switching matchup very intelligently.
Canada on D. The Canadians beat Sweden and Denmark in pool play. Also got a forfeit victory over the Congo, who at the last minute, because of visa issues, could not get to London. So Canada winning Pool C. Looking to Matsuno and Nathan Hurst, the youngest fella on Team Canada, makes a leaping defensive play.
Nathan Hurst may be young, but he's still going to be one of the top players on this squad. And he has a unique skill set. He can guard the smalls very easily. He's got great agility, great quickness, and that's going to play into Canada's hands in this game.
Hurst. This is Trevor Henry to Andrew Carroll. And now Carlo Asso. From Ottawa to Anatoly Vasiliev, the veteran. Born in St. Petersburg, Russia, he has played Ultimate all around the world and basically been excellent ever since he started. Hurst breaks the mark once more. Loasso To the 30 shirt, Greg Ellis, who picks up the assist to Henry. The first break of the day belongs to Canada.
Taking advantage of the mistakes of Japan. Canada finally getting on the board. And afterwards, no real defensive pressure from the Japanese. They have had a couple of hucks in a row, 2 of them that have hung in the air. And that's certainly not the strategy. Got the chance to watch them warming up. All of the hucks are supposed to be going deep in a blade type fashion to come in fast. Take a look at the replay here. Hurst is able to smack it down with the help of Andrew Carroll, and after that, it's pretty easy.
So Team Canada in front 3-2. Anatoly Vasiliev started playing Ultimate in St. Petersburg, Russia, when another group from Europe came and taught it to his high school class. Less than a year after beginning his Ultimate career, he was at a World Championships around the year 2000. And there's a certain confidence and arrogance among a young player, thinking that they could compete with the best. He's like, oh, we'll maybe lose to USA, but we'll beat a team like Germany. And then they lose to Germany 15-0 in his first game, and a dose of humility given to a young player on the world stage. But he has developed into one of the great handler defenders in the world.
He's a scary matchup for anybody who holds the disc. He gets more hand blocks on players than I've ever seen out of anybody.
Very close to landing out of bounds. Corono ruled in. Arakawa shoots it long, and a sliding catch, Kichikawa, and a Japanese answer. Kichikawa to Katsuta.
It may look like a simple throw, and for a lot of players it is, but Arakawa helping get the Japanese team towards the end zone. That wasn't a throw that he would have been making just only several years ago. He was brought onto this team originally for his speed to be a pure cutter, and you see him around the disc a lot more, getting some hucking opportunities. And I think with the matchups that Team Canada is going to play out there, they're going to try to take away Corono. They're going to try to take away Matsuno. It's going to be up to a couple of players to step up here if Japan is going to take this game.
Team Canada ended up beating Japan in the semifinals 4 years ago in Sakai. Canada ultimately falling to USA in the championship game.
Let's go TCO!
In 2012, the Canada did fall to the U.S., but it was actually in semifinals.
That's right, that's right.
As a result of the controversial game because of the bracket, Japan ended up going on the other side. Canada have to go through the U.S. But yeah, in 2012, Japan actually lost in a surprise upset to Sweden as a result of a windy day. Sweden and Great Britain would go on to face in the semifinals, and where Great Britain would win on Universe to play. It wasn't a very competitive championship game, and a lot of people thought that the Canadian-U.S. semifinal was, in fact, the championship game as a result of the loss to Japan.
Lindquist never afraid of a scuba, and even in wet conditions. Massa Kelly centers to Tim Sang.
We see here the zone, and as we take a nice wide angle look at the field, you can see Japan and the way they communicate. A lot of talking, figuring out where to go.
Hammer to the sidelines, Galitz. One of the things about the Japanese zone is that they really force you to be patient, because sometimes they won't mark you initially when you receive the disc in the backfield.
The no-mark zone is famous. It's something that really disrupted Ironside back at WUGC, the World Club Championships in Lecco, Italy in 2014.
Look at the size mismatch there between Massa Kelly and Takahashi. Nice touch on the swing pass from Sang to Underhill. Lindquist. You can see the conditions impacting the players, slipping and sliding around. These fields have held up spectacularly. Japan forcing several swings. Lindquist lands in the end zone. Harris picks up the assist.
Jeff Lindquist, the veteran player. We talked about his scoobers before, and something recently we got to learn was why he likes the high throws. And as we'll take a look here at the replay, a couple of swings. Team Canada staying very patient, and this is the first game where we've seen both teams just be that competent in offense. As we take it to Lindquist, and he does the Misty Mountain hop into the end zone.
Let's send it down to David Price down on the field. David?
I was just noticing in that last point, the Japanese really sitting off on their mark after they transitioned to person defense. It looks like they're really worried about the Canadians striking into the end zone very quickly.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. Oftentimes dropping off the mark after it's been on for a couple of counts to prevent a side cut. They communicate very well, and they morph from a man-to-man defense to more of a junkie defense, almost subconsciously.
It's something that they've had to do, and there's an inherent risk with that where you'll see open throws develop, but for them, when you're at the end zone, Team Canada is such an experienced offense, the percentages are in your favor to take more risks. We see that in other sports too, whether it be the NBA, football, a lot of switching.
A threatening deep cut from Matsuno, but they look him off and now hit him under. Nathan Hurst on the mark. Matsuno, the lethal lefty, and there's a blading backhand, and it works out perfectly. Great shot from Tetsuya Kamimura.
The defense can be in perfect position on the field, but it's not going to matter against the Japanese. They have the throwing strength and skill to put it fast and put it hard to the back shoulder where the defense doesn't even know it's coming. And as we take a look at the replay, Arakawa starts it off. I think he's going to be vital to this game. And then looking to the break side, Loiso takes a look off, and calling for it is Corono. Sliding catch makes the grab.
Well, Loiso and many of the Canadian defenders have been playing the unders. So Corono sensed that and said, just give me the disc to space.
He called for it, but it was no hesitation by the thrower. And like you said, Evan, he does a great job of finding the space, but it really isn't all that much. There's a sideline. The pass has to be threaded into a perfect position.
Masashi Corono certainly has become one of the Japanese top stars. Neither of these teams have lost yet in London. This is not an elimination game by any means, but it certainly sends a message. Brian, what do you think are the practical implications of this game and who comes out on top?
I think it's going to be a lot of confidence. With these teams, oftentimes they haven't played a lot together, and that's the case for Team Canada. Even though there's a big Toronto contingent, it's tough to get that chemistry, and so you want to come out and be playing your best, and that's just going to give you confidence moving forward that you can make some adjustments. But as far as that, it's a matter of who's going to be on what side of the bracket, because that has implications for who can make the final, who can go through the favorites, how easy your path is. Winning this game means you don't need to you don't have to play in a pre-quarter, and that shouldn't be a problem for either of these teams.
Tim Sang looking for Kevin Underhill. Perfect. How about Tim Sang? He's played in Eastern Canada and Western Canada with Montreal and now Vancouver. And the youngster out of McGill really finding his form in this Canadian offense.
You can tell they trust him here to put him on the offensive line and get the job done. And having coached against Tim Sang and seen him for a number of times, he's a very solid player. And sometimes that can sound like a knock, but Tim just makes the right plays at the right times. He's not going to be flashy. He's not going to make the spectacular play, but he's going to get open, and he's going to help the offense do its job.
While he's not physically overpowering in the way a Kevin Underhill or Isaiah Masik-Kelly or obviously a Morgan Hibbert, he is relentless with his quickness, and his speed is underrated as well. There's Kevin Underhill, a couple goals already.
He's such a versatile player. out of Vancouver. He's done a great job, and normally in the handler position because he's forced into that role. Here in Team Canada, he can be the guy who goes deep, and he can see the mismatch and choose. I think we talked about the quickness that Tim Seng adds, and guys like Nathan Hurst who are taking the match from Matsuno. They add a lot to the squad, which is full of a lot of big, tall receivers.
Lloyd marking Matsuno. Arakawa up line. Howe lays out, can't get it. Corono back to Matsuno.
Quick movement.
Yep.
It's just incredible. They sense what they need to do right away, and they don't hesitate. Very tough for any defense to keep up.
Matsuno went from the handler court downfield midpoint. Corono has seemingly gotten open whenever he's wanted to so far.
He was a name that kept coming up over the last several years. For a long time, it was Matsuno, and then Corono kept coming up.
Very nice throw from Tanaka.
Improved his game.
You can see the commitment to clearing out from Team Japan, and that throw isn't available as the travel might bring this back. But the point stands, the availability of the throw, a result of the commitment to the clear, which is something that I think might be one of the toughest things to learn for young ultimate players, that you need to cut as hard when you're not getting the disc as when you are.
And that's something that's debated amongst coaches as we'll kind of continue this discussion as they're going to get back in the end zone offense. You can't overstate the importance of clearing, of where to go, what space to go to as things get restarted.
Break the mark over the top, and it's Masahiro Matsuno beating Mark Lloyd to the spot. For Team Japan, it's 5-all.
And that's a tough spot to play defense in, because if you're Mark Lloyd, you have to commit to the force side. You have to go ahead and contain that. And it's a little bit of a flippy throw. Normally that could have been we would have seen Jeff Lindquist go with a scuba. That one's going to hang in the air as we take a look here in the replay. And this works in low wind conditions. We have a little bit of rain, so we don't get a great angle there as we take a look here. And just a tough chase down for Mark Lloyd to make. That would have had to be in a sensational block. Going back to your point about clearing, and that's one of the things as a coach, which every year you experiment a little bit differently. And how do you teach at the college level? How do you teach younger players? When we teach first day, I like to teach clearing first. As we take a look here at Masahiro Matsuno, clearing first. That way you talk about what you do after your cut's done. And you let players figure out how to cut by watching veterans, but they need to know how to clear. They need to know where to get out of the play and how to open up space for somebody else.
We are tied 5-all. In fact, USA and Australia next door are also even 5-all. Far fewer turnovers, though, in this game. Only 3 turnovers total in the first 10 points. 2 of those turnovers from Japan. Canada is actually up a break at the moment. Galitz to Masik Kelly. Needs a reset. Struggled to find McKnight, so he hits Underhill instead. And you can see there's an example of a Japanese player giving up the mark to help out in the open side cut. Lindquist receives the scuba and then backhands to Underhill. How about a little Lindquist flavor on the Masik Kelly shot to his buddy?
We're just used to seeing that from Jeff Lindquist. He loves delivering the scuba, and great point about the switches. This is something that's commonly seen on a give-go move, but Japan really commits to it, even on moves that are just simple up lines or four-side cuts.
Jeff Lindquist was asked early this year why he throws so many scubers, and his answer was basically, that's why I play. To me, ultimate is about the creative throws that you're able to use in the different angles of the disc, and that's what's fun, to experiment. This is of the simple variety for Lindquist.
As we see here, a simple clear actually allows Lindquist to go into the space. You just talked about the importance of clearing. This can't happen without first the cutter going to the front of the stack and clearing out that space for Lindquist to go into.
And it's like an offensive line in football. You know, you really need to study the film to know who had a good game, and you really need to be the coach to know who had a good game, because it may look like someone missed a block, but that might not be his responsibility. And similarly, in ultimate, you need to watch the film very closely to dissect if players are clearing correctly, and only the coaches truly know. Sliding underneath Matsuno. So far, Canada, Brian, has basically been switching up Nathan Hurst and Mark Lloyd on Matsuno.
I like the matchup of Hurst downfield on Matsuno. I think he's got the quickness to deal with it. And I also like seeing Andy Carroll here on Arakawa. Arakawa's been
there's Vasiliev, got a fingertip on the disc, and Canada has its first real layout D of the game. How long has he been doing that? Timeout Canada on a D from Anatoly Vasiliev as they look for the double break to inch closer to half. (6-5) Canada, and they will talk it over. And we'll check out the replay of this D.
Vasiliev just playing hustle defense, gets up in the air, and that's a hard block to come by.
The throw a little bit behind the intended target. Still had a chance to make the play.
Last thing, patience. We see our online how they work. We might have to make 40 passes. We can make 40 passes.
An interesting message there from Morgan Hibbert, who's been in this game a long time and has certainly enjoyed a highlight, but stressing patience in the huddle.
This Canadian team hasn't loaded up yet on defense. I think they've been playing everybody kind of equally, and so it's interesting to see how this game will evolve and what matchups they get. And right now you have a powerful weapon on the D-line. Carl Lasso normally is a stalwart on the offensive line. He's out there.
Plays offense for the Ottawa Outlaws in the AUDL. He was a member of the Toronto Rush before that. Vasiliev, Hurst, and Ellis, the three handlers. And they initiate with a hammer crossfield for Hibbert. Loiseau has Henry and Carroll downfield. Resets to Hurst. Hibbert. Aggressive mark. Vasiliev through the contact, completes to Henry. Vasiliev takes a chance. Andrew Carroll cannot come up with it.
Not sure what Vasiliev was looking at there, and it's not that Vasiliev doesn't have the hucks. He has very good ones, but that's not the type of throw we come to expect. Carroll's a speedster. Put it out in front of him.
A true 50-50. Not Carroll's game. Matsuno may have gotten a piece of it. So Japan with a chance to hold Mizuho Tanaka. Korono. Kichikawa hits Matsuno with Hurst right on his back.
A lot of trust and chemistry here in the Japanese offense. Hurst is doing a great job maintaining tight coverage, but it's almost not enough.
It's almost as if Japan has said, we are going to be very, very selective with our hucks. And yet they still fake many of them and threaten that cut deep. There's one chance. Matsuno gets his man. It's Kichikawa, the 39-year-old.
This was a very good defensive point for the Canadians, and yet Japan still ran all over them. They did a great job of maintaining body position. It's a tough gig when you're a defender, even when you're Andrew Carroll, one of the best in the game. And as we see here, Japan able to flip it through, and Carroll's right on the backside, just waiting for the throw to be a little bit off, but it's been right on the money so far. Only a couple of turnovers have appeared when Japan's misfired. Here they've been very good with throwing still. We take a look at Matsuno putting out that huck, and this is a same third, tough throw to make, putting it to the back corner, not a lot of space to do so.
We are tied 6-6. Canada is up a break. On the adjacent field, USA leads Australia 7-5 in the first half. Scott Shooter Hasty, the longtime head coach of Toronto Goat, the assistant coach the last couple of years for the Toronto Rush, assuming the responsibilities of head coach in 2016 for the AUDL team that is looking for its 4th straight trip to championship weekend. Well, so far, Brian, 12 points in, you would not think these teams have had any contentious past, in Japan not eager to pick up defensively here, and you seem very befuddled by what's going on.
I've seen conceding yardage before, but not in that fashion. They didn't even get past half field as a defense.
Japan basically forfeited that point defensively. And perhaps David Price has some insight on what he may have heard or seen from the sideline, because that was bizarre.
I've actually seen this before from the Japanese, previously pulling short or conceding ground to avoid getting hucked on. But I don't know why they didn't tighten up in the later third there, and Canada just struck straight through it.
They didn't even really pick him up in the last third, Brian, and it hasn't been the hucks that have hurt the Japanese so far.
I thought there might have been an offsides call. I thought it might have been something going on, because I don't think Canada knew it was going on at first, and they were looking for something, and they just played on. And like David said, great point, the Japanese never tightened up. And you said there's been no hucks so far. Maybe they were hoping that it would be one of those one-trick pony plays where you put out the play, the formation, Canada screws it up because they have to think a little bit.
You've heard of the snake in the grass, but it doesn't work if there are 7 snakes in the grass.
But usually you have to be laying down. Maybe if the Japanese laid down as well, then it would have worked well and faked out the Canadians.
Well, there's certainly a level of gamesmanship that can happen in these midweek games that are not elimination based.
Good switching downfield by Morgan Hibbert.
And I believe a call will send this back.
Hibbert calls pick, and then we might want to go down to the field after the point to our game advisor, Ruben, because right now Morgan Hibbert was nowhere near the player who received the disc.
I think they're going to send it back, but Hibbert is still going to be a big distance away from the man he's pursuing. It's Fred Lamb on the mark. Mizuho Tanaka, one of the 10 players in Japan who was on the open team in Sakai 4 years ago. Canada has had a much bigger roster turnaround. Low throw kept alive. Although, was there really any doubt? Kamimura looking long, and he beat Hibbert. It's Corona in the end zone for Japan. It's been Japan so far that has used the deep ball more than the bigger Canadians.
And we talked to the Canadian head coach, Scott Hasty, before the game. They expected Japan to shoot it deep, but I think surprisingly they've done it so far with great accuracy. Japan maybe had, every team has had an easy path to this game so far. Really no tight games that they've had been played with pressure. Here Japan seems just ready to operate. Only making a couple of mistakes. They're still in this game. Canada up the break. Maybe we can go downfield to Ruben, our game advisor here, and get an explanation there on the pick call. Looked like Morgan Hibbert was pretty far off his man.
Yeah, there was a pick called there. I didn't actually see the pick occur, but there was discussion that it could only go for one pass for continuation. The pass could have stayed where it was. There's no rule on how many passes you can have for continuation if it did not affect the play.
Thank you, Ruben Berg, the lead game advisor. Appreciate the clarification. Canada on offense, looking to take half. Canada currently up by a break. A chance for Canada to score here and then receive to begin the second half. But Kelly's shot was too far. Yes, Matsuno had peeled off to help, but Galitz was nowhere close to that huck. That's just the second turnover, the third turnover of the half for Canada. Matsuno kept his footing, crosses the disc to Inomata. Timeout, Japan. And they storm the field like they score.
They play with a great energy. They have some of the best cheers in the game, and it's always a sight to see. And Sakai was amazing, just the fan support that they had. So much pressure on them to win in their home country. And here they can play a little bit more carefree.
Really nice uniforms and gear as well. I'm a big fan of the Japanese wardrobe here in London. A timeout called, 7-7. Japan with a chance to take half and get us back on serve, and let's send it down to David Price. David?
I was just talking to Adrian Yearwood and Jeff Lindquist on the sideline about that trick play. They were suspicious that it might just be a bit of a mental game, and the Japanese trying to lull them into a false sense of security.
Yeah, I had that thought as well, but it seemed like an interesting time, to say the least, to pull that card out of their pocket.
I don't know what it rolled them into, but it was a pretty easy goal, so I don't think the Japanese should have tried that.
Basically surrendering a free goal. On the adjacent field, USA has the disc near the end zone. It's attacking. Ashlyn Joy to Joel Schlockett. 8-6. USA has taken half over Australia. Matsuno out of the timeout, marked by Harris. What is Japan looking to do from this angled stack, Brian?
Usually they like to get it to the break side and then get defenders out of position. Here they have the receiver shift, and it opened up for Matsuno.
Well, Matsuno just showing the quickness, burning Harris up the line, and Kim Harris not a slow player by any means. Harris very close to a layout D. Matsuno so steady with his short, crisp throws, the ability to get a lot of rotation on the disc, despite the small nature of the pass. Japan in no particular hurry to go to the end zone, and a foul called. Harris appeared to get a piece of the arm of Kikuchi. Does not appear to be a contested foul, so the stall count will be at 0. Dump, swing, score. Japan takes half and breaks Canada for the first time. A very well played half of ultimate.
Best half we've seen so far. You see the Japanese, they do a great job of moving the disc, and near the end zone, it's an unenviable position to be in as a defender. And so it's so hard once they get to that defender. They get some chances here. Harris almost gets the block, and Tim Sang doing a great job in the handler defense. But after the stoppage, it was just simple dump swing, and from there Matsuno burns McKnight to the cone for the goal.
A drizzly first half. That is virtually a tie at the break. Japan leads 8-7. The World Flying Disc Federation's free streaming coverage of the 2016 World Ultimate Championships from London is being brought to you by VC Ultimate, proud to be an official merchandise partner of the World Flying Disc Federation. By Eric, teaching youth about cancer symptoms through Ultimate Frisbee clinics. By the members of USA Ultimate and the World Flying Disc Federation. And by Discraft. Also, we wouldn't be here without the generous support of the thousands around the world who contributed to the WIFDIF Kickstarter this winter. We're virtually tied at the half on serve. Japan leads Canada 8-7. We'll be back in approximately 5 minutes for second half action of this critical men's showdown here in London. Welcome back to London, everybody. Japan leading 8-7 over Canada. Evan Lepler with Brian Jones. Great to have you with us wherever you might be watching from around the world, whether it's in the mid-afternoon hours in the east or perhaps early morning, middle of the night in Canada or the United States. Certainly an entertaining first half of Ultimate. It's almost perplexing that Japan has retaken the lead, considering that very bizarre possession where they virtually played no defense whatsoever and didn't seem to care that Canada would score in 5 throws.
Japan trying to pick their spots when they're going to play tight defense and trying to just lure teams into a mental trap and maybe slow them down. They do this with the no zone, the no mark zone, where they pretty much just let the thrower stand there for a while and just think about what he's doing, and that's important for athletes as there's a foul on the play on Underhill.
Canada's offense with McKnight, Massett, Kelly, and Underhill in the handling core. Sang, Lindquist, Galitz, and Harris downfield.
This team really challenging Team Canada. It's going to be interesting to see who they go with on matchups, how the defensive line evolves in the substitutions here, because Canada, now down, is going to need a break to win.
Oh, and a mistake there. Underhill looking under, Galitz went deep, looking long. Kamori has it denied. Tim Sang comes up with a D for Canada.
That one hung a little bit too much.
McKnight shot to Harris just past the laying out defender Cusano. Underhill, Lindquist, Galitz. Momentum can swing quickly in this game, can it?
Japan trying to go with a fast break offense off the turnover. They go with the right shot, but it doesn't get there quickly enough as Tim Sang's able to reel it down. And going back to that turnover, Kevin Minderhout playing with Andrew Galitz.
Kevin Underhill.
Underhill, yes. With Andre Galitz. We'll get the names right here eventually. They're teammates going back in Vancouver. Yeah, we saw Tim Sang earlier, but the turnover beforehand by Underhill, Galitz going the other way, a miscommunication. That's not a chemistry issue. They've been playing together for years. So you take a look here at the replay. Sang coming through.
Great job attacking the disc.
I like the fast break opportunity. Canada, though, McKnight able to throw it deep, and from there, the Japanese defense was in disarray and couldn't find who to cover.
There's Remy Ojo. We haven't seen him on the field much since that early point when he got beat up the line and did not look like the athletic demon that he is.
And now we see a top defensive line out here for Canada. Martin, Hurst, Carroll.
Martin hasn't played much this game. He's on Corona. They go deep, and Corona has it. Martin sprawled out, quickly pops up. And Corona calls a foul. Let's quickly go down to David Price. David?
you'll notice there that even though that huck went high, the Japanese players still try to catch it with 2 hands, and that's key to how the Japanese play and the style in which they play. You'll very rarely see them try and catch with 1.
Timeout called after the play. Japan has the disc on the goal line, looking to take a 1-score lead. The mist has become slightly more intense, still much more of a mist than a steady rainfall. Certainly not conditions foreign to anyone who spends extensive amount of time here in the United Kingdom. Yesterday was the first day of the tournament where there was no rain at all. We could be in for more of this as the week progresses.
We already got a taste of it early here on Monday. But as we've talked about, the fields here are incredible. Just standing up really well to the rain, giving them the proper rest.
The army of flags from around the world. The opening ceremonies on Sunday were quite the spectacle, as every single country had a flag bearer who marched into the primary showcase field. Again, I think it's worth stating how friendly and competitive this game has been, but certainly not the contentiousness of 4 years ago, and there really have not been any controversial calls. There was a plan to use a couple of translators. Soki Sato, number 0 for Japan, one of the better English speakers on the team, but the communication barrier has not been a conflict point so far today. And just breaking the mark to score easily. Japan up 9-8.
I think Vasilyev almost got a hand on that. Low throw from Tanaka. Tanaka's been somebody who's been a stalwart for this Japanese offense. Great handler, very consistent, takes a lot of pressure and moves the disc well to set up the continuation cuts. Take a look here. Vasilyev on the mark, gets low. Tanaka just gets lower. And the dish to the end zone for the eventual score. Cut across the field, defender out of position.
Kichikawa with the score. Korono another assist.
And the question here is, can Canada continue to hold and produce some more defensive pressure? Very few turns in this game. Very well run offense has given us the tightest game we've seen all week.
There were only 6 turnovers in the first half, 3 per side. Each team had 1 turnover on the initial point of the second half. So 4 turnovers apiece in the game as we play the 18th point. Power pool battle. Winner is guaranteed one of the top 2 seeds in bracket play. Winner of this game will play the winner of USA and Australia. 1:30 local time. Wonder what the conditions will be like for that game. Only time will tell. And the winner of that game is virtually the number 1 seed heading into the bracket. The loser would be the 2 seed going into the bracket. And after that, Brian, starting tomorrow, it's basically do or die in the pursuit of a world championship. Floaty outside in backhand to the end zone, and Matsuno got there. Didn't necessarily hit the disc, but he did enough to prevent Tim Sang from making the catch.
Matsuno playing a lot of points here in the second half. We already saw him at the end be a big player, especially off of the turn. Take a look here. Sang gets up. Matsuno gets a little bit higher, a little bit earlier. And not a good decision by McKnight. That's something that if you see that shot go up to Mazzucchelli, you like him to, with the chances to come up for that grab. But Sang's role is much more quickness, speed, and coming down with passes out to space.
Matsuno looks like he still has it, doesn't it?
Incredible player.
Japan, low laser, no. Mata with just a little too much pace on that forehand. But perhaps coming back via a foul call on the mark.
Looks like actually will be a pick coming through that holds up the defenders for Canada, and it's one of those in this rule set where they're going to just regret a little bit of that call. Japan with a chance to extend their lead and take control of the game.
There was a switch that left the 58 shirt Fukushima wide open. Over the top crossfield for Inomata. Matsuno back to Inomata. A break for the Japanese, and for the first time, Japan leads by more than one.
It's a tough matchup here for the Canadians when there's a turnover on offense. They don't have the personnel to guard all the small, quicker players, and we'll see how the Canadians adjust. Tejpar and Lasso will join the field along with Mark Lloyd.
And a critical offensive point coming up for Team Canada. Kelly, Lindquist, Sang, Underhill, Lloyd. Tejpar now coming to the bench, and Andy Octorloni replacing him along with Lasso. But Japan, Matsuno has played a lot of points here, Brian.
It's going to help him take the lead, but can they stay in contention and keep the energy up? And that's hard to do, especially in a slugfest like this one. I don't think that we've seen teams play their best defense yet, and I don't think Canada has at all. Should they get the hold here, I expect the intensity to really rise through the rest of this game, especially normally in these Worlds games, they have normally been to 17. This year, only to 15. There's not too much time left in this one.
Soft cap at 100 minutes. Be surprised if we didn't get to 15, but your point being that we're only 5 away from there. Here we go. Sang and Underhill, the handlers, against this zone defense, sagging off Japan. Not marking aggressively.
No mark whatsoever here on Lasso. Forces the offense to be very patient. I like this style. It's something I've wanted to experiment with in the past.
Well, if you have a lead and you encourage a team to be patient, if Mark Lloyd held the disc for 40 minutes here, Japan would win.
Go to some old school Hoosiers basketball.
The four corners.
It allows them to protect the deep and just really not put pressure on the disc. But you see how well they move, and Canada hasn't done so well. Now they're jailbreaking through.
Nice holster there by Underhill. Didn't have an easy shot. Passed up the difficult one. Lindquist and Kelly, almost a D from Furuzawa. Octorloni just shy of the goal line. Lindquist. Lasso. Lindquist and Loiseau playing catch.
You talked about before, the switching still happening, not putting a lot of pressure on the mark.
And a travel call on Lindquist. You see a straight stack in the end zone from Canada. Octorloni's at the back. Up the line. That was crafty. Underhill, high release lefty backhand, and Kelly, the big target, makes it 10-9.
The angles are going to be small. They're going to be short. They're going to have tight windows here against the Japanese. As defenders, you don't know where they're coming from. And so if you have a chance to deliver a trick throw, one that you have confidence in, take a look here, Isaiah Kelly, number 17. Somebody who's risen to prominence over the last 5 years, and got the chance to cover him specifically at U23s in Toronto in 2013 when he was coming up, becoming a name for the first time in a while, and from there he's only gotten better.
He's grown the beard to look a little older.
Take a look, turn the page cut here from Octorloni, 38 years old, still has it. And the lefty here from Underhill. Great angle to attack with.
You know, I've talked about how that lefty backhand is a throw that has really proliferated, you know, over the last decade in particular. But I have to imagine that there may be 5 to 10 times as many lefty backhands now as there were 4 years ago at international tournaments like Worlds in Japan.
The game has changed overall so much. A little bit of a zone here from the Canadians. A 3-3-1, just playing soft. Vasiliev going to be doing some switching in the mark, a lot of lane poaching. Kind of giving the Japanese a taste of their own medicine.
Japan has been tough to guard in the matchup defense. The quickness has been tough to contain. Canada's been close to several blocks, but Vasiliev's D early really the only underneath D in the game. Kichikawa. Tanaka. Kichikawa. Tough throw. Oh, Katsuta.
It's a tough throw to make when your receiver is running directly away from you. But the Japanese are so skilled with the blade throws, it doesn't matter. They'll throw whatever it takes. It's kind of like a backyard game when you're growing up with your friends and you're playing pickup and you have that chemistry with the guy that you used to run cross country with. But it's an entire team full of that where everything works.
This point an example of how tough defense can be if your throws are this pinpoint. Look at that. Nice soft touch. Kichikawa to Katsuta.
And Andrew Carroll is an incredibly fast defender, so if that hangs whatsoever, he's going to get the block.
On the adjacent field, Team USA has extended its lead on Australia, now 11-7 for USA. And as I speak, it becomes 12-7 for the Americans. We were wondering whether it would be USA-Canada later today or perhaps USA-Japan. Japanese up a couple breaks. Up one break, but Canada would need to break twice to win. Lindquist, Underhill, Galitz. Here's Underhill again. Kelly did not have an angle for the reception, so here comes Ochterlony, the veteran deep cutter, who's still very valuable to Canada because of his size. Aside from Morgan Hibbert, Ochterlony, perhaps the #1 deep target who can tower over the pack. Certainly guys like Kelly and Lloyd, very dangerous deep as well.
And here's where Lindquist is just so dangerous to guard. You've been guarding him as a cutter the entire point, and now he turns into a handler that can throw that.
Tseng. You saw Japan was very hesitant to set a mark until they saw that the end zone was covered. Oh, and a mistake from Canada. It was Harris that slipped. The cleats betraying Canada's 91.
Foul called downfield, a little bumping. Harris on defense.
Brian, as someone who has spent so much time coaching, I'm wondering if you could put perspective on how hard it is to develop the defensive chemistry that Japan is showcasing around the goal line.
I don't think anybody in the country, in the world, has been able to do it besides the Japanese. Running those poach schemes, and they have 4 people flying around the disc, but they're all communicating, changing fields very well. There's a reason why they're so fun to watch. They're very unique on offense and defense. They find new ways to get the job done.
And it's not like they don't have the athleticism. They may be lacking some height, which could factor in here, but the throw was too perfect. Caught by Komori. Reset for Hana. Taku Hana. Japan so comfortable sacrificing yardage, and Japan has taken a stranglehold on this match. 12-9 in the second half.
Japan has made this game a track meet on offense, and they've done it so well to the fact that the Canadians were gassed in that possession. And even though the throws were perfect, there wasn't tight coverage. Underhill looked gassed coming up the field. Lindquist was leaving space for his man deep. Nothing was available. It was all available, the entire field, as we can take a look here at the replay. Japan just running the offense the way they want to, coming down the field.
Who would have ever thought that Japan would have more over-the-top connections in this game than Canada?
The way they do it is just the throws come in so fast that if you're out of position for a second, it's so tough. I'm extremely surprised to find Canada down 3. I think it's going to be interesting to see what adjustments they make going away as we take a look wide open in the end zone.
Let's go.
In the Canada huddle, Shooter Hasty basically asked everyone to take a deep breath. And for a few seconds, they did not speak. They just breathed. Will that be enough to calm Canada down? One of the aspects that makes this Japan team so tough is their mysteriousness. And very few outside of Japan have gotten a distinct window into their exact training methods. I know they basically had bi-weekly camps leading up to the World Championships. Most of their players are from Tokyo. There are some from Osaka. They came together at least every couple weekends for mini camps, and clearly have developed some great confidence together. Watched a good bit of their first pool play game against India, another very fun team to watch, somewhat similar style to Japan, and Japan has just been doing what they do longer than the Indians and took care of business. But the Japanese coming out of Pool E with wins over Austria, the Netherlands, and India. Their closest game was 15-8.
Canada floods a side stack, and they're looking deep for Mark Lloyd.
Massac Kelly's flick to Lloyd. He goes up and rises for the score. Vintage Lloyd for Canada. How about that?
Any doubt that Mark Lloyd has recovered from his ACL tear from just a year ago has just vanished. He was someone who single-handedly, it felt single-handedly, he's got a lot of talent around him, took down Revolver in the club scene in quarters just a couple of years ago. He looked like on a meteoric rise to be the best player in the world. And Canada hasn't found the space to use him here. They get back to the old ways. Massac Kelly puts up the huck, and Lloyd goes up.
Spectacular.
I'm not sure if that's the highest Lloyd could have gotten pre-injury, but that's higher than anybody else could get in that grouping. And that's all he needed.
There's certainly a type of do-everything player who's going to stay out on the field as Canada has gotten back within 2. Let's head down to the field and check in with David Price. David?
Just going back to the foul call that we saw in the previous point between Harris and the Japanese player. On the sideline here, they had a little quick discussion with the translator to just go through the situation, and decided that they weren't going to start calling bitty calls like that and carry on that sort of tit for tat, which is very good spirit from both teams.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you, David Price. Down on the field, and Japan turns it over, but Matsuno calls a foul on Lloyd, and the two superstars will converse. The translator, Kaz Sugo, running onto the field.
Looks like that was actually Kichikawa.
Oh, you're right.
Throwing the disc.
Yes. I definitely did not hit hand. I got all disc. If his argument was the disc was still his hand, I would consider contesting. But I really think I got all disc and no hand.
当にディスクにしか触ってないと彼は。続けようか。で、まあそれのファウルというのがコンテストした。俺は手に当たってるのでファウルっていう。
Taking a look here at the replay.
体温短いのでももらって、その後。
He's saying.
これここ開けるから。
Yeah, you hit his hand. So
Okay.
So you.
So it's contested.
I would like if you saw it. I don't think I got any disc at all.
It's so very close. It's very
I know.
hard to tell
I
if
know
it's still
that.
in his hand or not. So I think we just have to try to test it and play on.
That's a foul.
Yeah.
It's too close.
I know.
for
I know. That's totally fair. Contest.
You could see from Mark Lloyd's reaction that he genuinely believed he had made the play. And I certainly wouldn't put it past him in these big moments to put the team on his back. But it will stay with Team Japan. Kichikawa's dump falls through the hands of Katsuta. Yearwood quickly picks up Vasiliev. Back to Yearwood. Hurst. Carroll. Vasiliev. Carroll up the line. Low throw picked by Lloyd. Angled and well done by Japan. Masahiro Korono now going deep. Lloyd can't get it. Korono all alone. He waits for his entire team to catch up. Travel called. So much to digest on this point, Brian Jones.
Going back to that turnover, Lloyd had Hurst standing in the spot. Powell had fallen down in the lane. A great poach D by Japan.
Katsuta. Matsuno. Katsuta not in. Now he is in. And Powell getting clogged up with a jersey. It appeared to be a spirited conclusion. The goal for Kichikawa, 13-10 Japan. What a wild 23rd point of the match that was. It looked like Lloyd had the D, and then on the restart, Japan threw it away. But in the red zone offense, Canada could not put it away.
Powell falls down, doesn't matter. Defender comes through. Korono getting a great block on Hurst. Lloyd goes up for the D, can't get there. Would have been an amazing block. Korono doing it all on that point.
Well, a lot happened that point. Ruben Berg, if you're with us down on the field, the head game advisor, just your perspective on the disputes during that point, including the little altercation at the end.
Yeah, I think in terms of the call that we had with Mark Lloyd on the block, our game advisor stepped in and wanted to say it was really close, so we can't tell for sure. No idea what happened down here in this corner.
We got some word that there was some jersey tugging by Powell, but it looked like he was just doing it to slow down and making sure he didn't run into the Japanese player. He's got a lot of momentum. They like to call him Bomber for a reason.
Well, Canada had a lead in the first half, 7-6. But Japan, since that time, has gone on a 7-3 run. And they've done it with simple plays and excellent team defense. Tough catch by Thompson McKnight. Ahead for Lindquist. Massa Kelly. Underhill. Lindquist looked off, saying on the reset. Now he'll look back to him. Harris evades the defensive effort of Furuzawa. Canada comfortable swinging the disc, but you can tell they're a little anxious to go downfield. Galitz to Harris. One more to Sang. 13-11. Japan back on offense in a moment.
Great movement of the disc. All it takes is one short window and one throw to get the play going, and after that, it's Bing, bang, boom, right up the sideline. McKnight having to do a lot of work there in the handler space to get open. So we take a look here on the replay. McKnight gets the disc, and from here, it's just a matter of finding that window, which he does to Galitz. Galitz high, and after that, quick pass Harris, and after that, in for the goal to Sang. Great continuation off of this small window. You talk about small ball a lot, and people say, okay, we're going to dunk our way up the field. But small ball is a great offense that can lead to great big opportunities. And just because you employ it doesn't mean you aren't looking for the huck. Every team has to have the ability to huck.
Well, I want to welcome those of you who perhaps just finished watching the USA take down Australia 15-8. It was 5-all in that game, and then a 10-3 run to close out for the Americans. Evan Lepler, Brian Jones with you on the adjacent pitch here in London as Japan has used a ferocious defensive effort in the second half. Lloyd bids, can't get it. Japan looking long, 50-50. And both Hurst and Matsuno went up early. Canada has forced a turnover, trailing by 2.
Matsuno had a lot of separation, but the throw falling just short. Rain here could have played a factor.
Many of the spectators on the USA-Australia field have come on over to see the conclusion of Japan and Canada. The winner of this game will face the winner of USA-Australia, which was USA, in a crossover 1v1 game in just a few hours.
We just saw Morgan Hibbert delivering the underneath pass to Mark Lloyd, and you might think that Hibbert's a natural lefty, but that's not really the case. It was actually several years ago where he had a devastating injury to his right hand, and he couldn't really throw flicks anymore. And so as a result, he developed a lefty game and kind of transformed that. Might have been an improvement in a way, because it's always tougher to guard lefties.
They have the distinct advantage. One reason why Matsuno is great, although certainly not the only reason. We haven't seen a lot of David Hochhalter in this game. A very crafty, confident thrower in his own right. Here's Jeff Powell. They call him Bomber. Resets to Hurst.
Powell with a little bit of hesitation, trying to get Hurst to go all the way behind the mark to the break side.
Now you look at the 7 on the line here for Canada. Hochhalter, Hurst, Loiseau, Henry, Hibbert, Powell, Lloyd. Do you want Mark Lloyd to try to take charge, or do you want to keep running the team offense?
I think you have to run the team offense, but you want Mark Lloyd touching the disc. Normally here, he'd be the primary cutter coming back in the backfield pre-injury.
And he's looked much like the pre-injury guy this game. That disc was tipped by Arakawa, but it landed to Hochhalter and then Lloyd. Canada back within 1 on the break.
We're going to get our first real barn burner. And I guess I shouldn't say that we had 2 of them yesterday, but when you talk about ultimate and offenses, 2 of the top teams that come to mind are the Japanese and Team Canada. Japanese forced to throw deep. They've been doing it all weekend. Been doing it well, and Canada kind of likes that matchup. This one's just going to hang a little bit too long. And Canada runs pretty simple offense, gets the job done down the other side. Hurst playing some big minutes here. He's a young player. And then you have kind of the old guard, Morgan Hibbert. He is not Kermit the Frog.
Well, here's the deep shot.
You see the shape of the throw. The Japanese don't like to hang the throws like that. They like them to come in a little bit faster so the defense doesn't have time to make a play. Arakawa almost comes up with the block.
And Lloyd fired up. He has become the leader of Canadian Ultimate. Replacing guys like Hibbert, Oscar Partinger, Mike Grant before him. Hibbert chasing Matsuno, looking long. And Japan, nice and easy down the field. It was Malcolm Bryson who got beat on the deep shot, and Japan leads 14-12 within one of a statement victory.
Not sure the line selections there were the top defenders for Team Canada.
David Price, did you notice something down on the field?
I was just noticing how well Japan are isolating players in the lanes. There's hardly anyone on one side of the field, and they're just cutting deep, striking under, and it's exactly what how they're getting that disc moving down that open side.
Yeah, for those who just joined us, Canada certainly has the greater size and height, but the surprising factor has been Japan has been more effective in the deep space in this game from wire to wire than Canada. Perhaps because Canada has really pressured the unders and tried to force Japan to do that, but to the Japanese's credit, they have taken advantage of that dynamic.
Going forward for the Canadians, they're down a couple of points. They can get back within one. You've seen the entire roster being used, and I have to think that's intentional going into this game. This isn't an elimination game, and maybe the Canadians are just confident that they'd rather use this to figure things out. Because while Malcolm Bryson is a great player, there are some other defensive standouts that I would have thought would have been on the line.
Underneath, the defensive play from Jun Kusano. Japan could win it here.
Lindquist and Sang cut to the same spot and got a little confused on who should have taken the aggressive priority.
Takahashi. And a drop.
Sang actually coming up with a beautiful layout block.
Yep, Sang getting in there. Koike could not get there first. Canada has fresh life. Lloyd is getting this point off. It's Underhill, Kelly, Lindquist doing the heavy lifting on offense. And away from the disc, there was a stoppage. Sang, McKnight, Galitz, and Harris are all in the stack. Kelly, Underhill, Lindquist. Almost running a handler weave near the end zone in a triangular formation. Lindquist, oh, the pivot to McKnight. He lulled his mark to sleep. 14-13, Canada within one.
Lindquist shows the push pass just before that. Underhill uses the lefty, this time from a little bit more of a distance. Great job by Canada to get the block, starting with Sang, and then put it in the end zone to keep this one within one. And with the rules here on caps, this is a game to 15 hard. So the first team to 15 regardless will win this game. So it's not a win by two situation.
Canada needs to break back-to-back points coming up here to avoid their first loss of the tournament. The Canadian goal line offense has frankly reminded me a little bit of Harvard at college nationals in the USA a few weeks ago, watching John Stubbs and Mark Vanderberg. Stubbs was a star, now a member of the USA team that just beat Australia. Mark Lloyd back on the field with Vasiliev, Powell, Carroll, Hurst, Yearwood, and Loiseau. Japan looking to win it. Kikuchi thought about the deep shot. He had the 11 shirt Kamimura. Now it's Matsuno with Hurst on him. Canada has done a decent job containing Matsuno.
It's been Corono, though, that's really been a difficult matchup.
Yep, in the 6 shirt, Loiseau has that task this point. Japan looking for the offensive hold to win. Lloyd's bid, undercut number 80, Kichikawa. Both players all right.
Great defense being played by the Canadians, cutting off all the angles.
Kichikawa going deep on Lloyd, and Lloyd tips it, but the game is going to end like that. Kichikawa off the deflection. Japan has thrown the first knockout punch. A grazing blow. 15-13 is the final, and Canada suffers its first loss in the men's division here at WUGC 2016.
Mark Lloyd looked like he was going to take over this game. He had a couple of goals, got up big, got a block in this one coming through, and as soon as it happens, he puts his hands on his face, doesn't want to see the outcome. He's just going to listen to the sideline, and I don't blame him. It's a horrible feeling as a defender when you get the block. Goes up and immediately, look away, Mark. It'll be okay. Canada will survive. They'll still be alive in this matchup, but later on today, it will be Japan facing USA for the right to the #1 seed in this tournament.
Wow, this was a remarkable battle. Canada looked like they had the edge in the first half, Brian, especially with that bizarre point around 6-6 when Japan chose to not really play defense until they got near the end zone, and even then Canada scored easily. But that was an outlier. The Japanese chameleon defense, really the amoeba, it's almost like morphing from one set to another. Great defensive chemistry, and the Japanese get the win 15-13 after trailing 7-6 in the first half. So it is Japan over Canada. Really fine spirit in this game. Brian, your final thoughts on what this battle was and what it means for the rest of the tournament?
I think Japan came out ready to win and just had their matchup set. We saw Kurono and Matsuno playing a lot of defensive points. They wanted to win this one and advance on to play the USA. And in this case, this guarantees Japan will not be on USA's side of the bracket going forward. Canada looked like they were trying to get all of their players involved early, and I was surprised to not see them tighten up. I think we'll see a very different Canadian substitution as the game goes on.
Let's listen in.
ああいった試合が今後お互いないように今日はクリーンな試合ができてよかったと思います。Both sides, bad meaning and the good meaning. The game in Osaka was a good experience for us. And today also clean game, and we really enjoyed it. 今日は非常にどっちが勝ってもおかしくない試合でしたが、運よく日本が勝てました。まだまだトーナメントが続きますので、ぜひもう一度ファイナルで戦いましょう。We thought that both of us have a chance to meet, and we were kind of lucky. And we will play against you guys the rest of in this tournament again. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Cheers. Canada and Japan play a fantastic battle, won by the Japanese 15-13 on Showcase Field 1. The World Flying Disc Federation's free streaming coverage of the 2016 World Ultimate Championships from London has been brought to you by VC Ultimate, proud to be the official merchandise partner of the World Flying Disc Federation, by Eric, teaching youth about cancer symptoms. And let's listen in.
To play teams as talented as you guys. A lot different style than what we're used to playing. Lots of quick cuts, quick disc movement, and took a while for us to adjust, and really well run offense by you guys. Good luck in the rest of the tournament, and we hope to see you guys down the road. And then we also, yeah, you go.
Yeah, just a little token. We all grew up playing hockey. Some of us played mini stick hockey, a little bit of this guy. So, good game. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Cool moment after a contentious but spirited game. Japan over Canada 15-13. Our coverage presented by Eric, teaching youth about cancer symptoms through Ultimate Frisbee clinics by the members of USA Ultimate, by the World Flying Disc Federation, and by Discraft. So that'll wrap it up for our round one coverage. We'll have mixed action coming up on field one. Team Canada trying to bounce back from a shocking Universe Point loss yesterday to the Czech Republic. It'll be Canada versus the Philippines in about 30 minutes here from field one. On field two, Great Britain will be in action. So check that out as well. For Brian Jones, this is Evan Lepler saying so long for now from London. The World Ultimate and Guts Championships with several spectacular games. One of them you just saw, Japan 15, Canada 13.
Catch it early. Help us teach kids about cancer symptoms through Ultimate Frisbee clinics. Join us and speak up.